Welcome back. Before we get on to the Starmer's free clothes, a wardrobe packed full of clothes that other people give them, like a jumble sale or something, only for high-priced designer label clothes. What's the matter with them? Buy your own clothes. You get hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. What's the matter with you? Before we get onto that, Russell, the junior doctors have just voted to accept the government pay offer worth 22.3% on average over 2 years. This has been announced by the pompously named two-bit trade union they call the British Medical Association. So that's a nice big fat pay rise. It's good, the government's approach to public sector pay claims. They just pay them, don't they?
Let's not be fooled.
They just pay them.
Let's not be fooled by the wonderfully sounding and very clinically sounding British Medical Association.
Two-bit trade union.
It is one of the most left-wing trade unions in Britain. What's this cost the taxpayer then? So 22% over 2 years, 11% per annum, probably 3, 4, 5 billion pounds. And let's be honest, so we've had train drivers, doctors, nurses and so on. Civil service, teachers, every other member of the public sector over the next few weeks and months is also going to be going on strike, demanding similar double-digit inflation-busting pay rises.
Absolutely. So the good news is the junior doctors, along now, as you say, Russell, with the train drivers and the public sector workers, the civil servants, they'll be able to afford their winter fuel, no problem at all, because Keir Starmer's giving them all the money. In fact, he's taking it away from poor old pensioners who can't afford to heat their homes.
Well, Kev, train drivers on 70 grand a year, mate, they can afford to burn tenors.
Yeah, that is Keir Starmer's redistribution of wealth, taking it away from poor old pensioners and giving it to doctors and to train drivers and to public sector civil servant workers. Good, isn't it? Meanwhile, pensioners starve to death. Great. 0344 499 1000. Now let's go on to the savoury business of the Starmer's clothes, the scrounging Starmer's clothes. So we learned a couple of weeks ago that Lord Wahid Ali, a big Labour donor, nothing wrong with donating to the Labour Party. Rich people have always donated to their favourite political parties, and Lord Wahid Ali, old friend of mine, as a matter of fact, has been giving generously to the Labour Party for many a long decade. Nothing wrong with that. Giving free clothes to a man whose last annual income was recorded as £404,000, Keir Starmer. Free £18,000 of free suits, £2,000 worth of fashionable spectacles, glasses for passes, as they said, because Wahid Ali got a number 10 security pass out of it. Now it turns out, Russell, that Wahid Ali also gave £5,000 worth of free clothes to Keir Starmer's wife, Victoria. Now, that turns out to be a blatant breach of the rules, and Keir Starmer quickly had to declare it last Tuesday, by which time it's too late. He is officially under investigation for breaking the cronyism rules. But here's the Foreign Secretary, David Lamy, speaking to Laura Kunsberg on the BBC over the weekend on this very issue.
Do rely on donations, political donations, so they can look their best, both in the hope of representing the country if you're in the opposition, or indeed as Prime Minister. That's the situation.
But with respect, the Starmers aren't exactly broke. I mean, he had big senior jobs, he's paid very well, he's paid very well as Prime Minister.
I'm not suggesting the Prime Minister is broke, and of course we can have that debate. But the point is this, that successive Prime Ministers want to look their best, and their partners, for the country. That is what lies behind this.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is the Foreign Secretary. What a load of crap. What is he talking about? So she says, with respect, the Prime Minister is not broke. And he said, that is a debate we can have at another time. We're going to debate whether or not the Prime Minister is broke. Thanks, Dave.
So there's an argument that he might be.
Yeah, exactly right. What are you just talking an absolute crock?
But the thing is,
absolute crock. These people are getting hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. They're earning loads of money. Why not? They're successful people. He's the Prime Minister, for God's sake. The Prime Minister can afford his own clothes. For the taxpayer to be expected to kit out his wife and him would be a disgrace, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, fancy wheeling out David Lamy as your defender-in-chief. I mean, that was a bit of a mistake, wasn't it? And talk about plumbing the depths of political excuses to say, well, actually, because the United States President and First Lady get an allowance, by the way, which they don't, from the taxpayer, to dress themselves so that they look prim and proper when they're walking across the White House lawn. Yeah. In some way, that means that Keir Starmer, £400,000 a year, Victoria Starmer, 40 grand a year, plus the £2 million house and all the other, and don't forget his gold-plated pension, by the way, where the rules were specifically rewritten for Keir Starmer to make sure that he benefited to the maximum on that pension. The fact that he would have to have somebody else, not just buy himself clothes, but can you imagine another man buying your wife clothes, Kev?
Well, I wouldn't mind if they were free.
Well, I'm not
cheaper
sure.
than me buying them, isn't it?
I'm not sure that it's something I want on my conscience, frankly, another man buying my wife clothes.
So I wouldn't want to burden any man with having to buy my wife's clothes. She buys about 10 grand's worth of clothes every day.
So you've got Lamy making the excuses, and a rather pathetic one at that, as if Starmer can't afford his own clothes, and he needs to look like some kind of M&S model or something when he's kind of walking through the Downing Street Rose Garden. But you talk about your mate Wahid Ali, and he does donate a lot of money to the Labour Party, and that is fine. That is within the rules. I'll concede that. But do we really think that anyone donates money for nothing? There's always an agenda,
Well, of course,
Kev.
no. I mean,
there's always a reason. And we know here the reason is that he got a full Category A security pass to Downing Street.
More than that. You know, one suspects that the government will look kindly on his business, if you see what I mean.
Probably.
This is why rich tycoons give political parties money, so that when they're in power, their businesses are looked after.
So now cast your mind back a couple of years to the furore, the fuss that was made over Boris Johnson's wallpaper. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So Boris Johnson used a donor, not taxpayers' money, but a donor to pay for his wallpaper, and he didn't declare it properly. Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, and funnily enough, David Lamy called for his head as a consequence of that. What is different about this scenario, Kev? Nothing.
There's nothing different. Keir Starmer said he was going to cut out cronyism and corruption in Westminster. Everybody, how do you think it's going for him? And what do you think about David Lamy's implication, his suggestion that maybe, he's put that in the air, that maybe we, the taxpayers, should start paying for our Prime Ministers and their wives to look good? Don't you think that people who are earning £400,000 a year maybe can handle the purchase of their own clothes like the rest of us? I mean, I work in an industry where everybody assumes, oh, you must get a clothing allowance. Here's, do you want to know what my clothing allowance is? Yeah, no jokes. Yeah, obviously, and all
obviously
that.
Zero.
But that's my clothing allowance. It's zero.
Can I just suggest, though, that David Lamy actually might want to send an email to Wahid Ali and ask for some money for trainers and shoes.
No, some decent shoes and not...
Fancy rocking up to Washington, D.C. to meet the President wearing a pair of black trainers.
The guy's got no idea. Anyway, let me know what you think about that. Shouldn't the Prime Minister and indeed his wife pay for their own clothes? What do you think about the suggestion that we should start footing the bill for the Prime Minister and indeed other cabinet ministers' wardrobes? What do you think about that? I say no. What do you say? 03444 991 1000. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the situation involving two-tier Keir's efforts to solve the migrant crisis. He's been in Italy trying to pick up some lessons from Giorgia Meloni, the Italian leader, who's done a damn good job. While our Prime Minister and Home Secretary, Keir Starmer and Calamity Cooper, do the square root of sod all about solving the migrant crisis, they continue to come. You no doubt all noticed that 801, no less, came over on Saturday in 14 different boats, and along the way 8 people drowned and 200 had to be plucked from the sea, rescued from the sea. That was Saturday. 801, second biggest number in a single day all year. And the number of people who have died this year is now up to about 45, I think, which is 4 times more than last year. So this inactivity on the part of our government is causing deaths. We've got to wanting to solve this crisis, wanting to stop these migrants coming over, isn't about racism or Little Englandism or anything. It's about not wanting people to die in these flimsy dinghies. And guess what? Yesterday, this has gone under the radar. radar. Another 292 came across yesterday. So still they come. Meanwhile, Starmer has gone over to Italy, where he's receiving lessons from how to solve your migrant crisis from Italian leader Giorgia Meloni, who has reduced the number of foreigners, asylum seekers, pitching up on Italian shores by 62%. She's done this by doing a sort of third-party processing deal with Albania and doing like big money deals with Libya and Tunisia to get them to patrol their shores and stop the boats coming. It's been very, very successful. Starmer's going very interested to hear about this. But I'll tell you what isn't in her plan, Russell, is anything about smashing the people smuggling gangs. Now, Keir Starmer and Calamity Cooper's only focus is on smashing the gangs. We're going to smash the gangs. He's taken along with him to Italy this guy Martin Huitt, who is the cop who was in charge of imposing COVID lockdown regulations on him, so I don't like the sound of him. But his job, smashing the people smuggling gangs, won't work. Everybody knows it. You've got to stop the migrants. Never mind the gangs. The gangs will always be there. So I suspect that's what Giorgia Meloni's telling the Prime Minister. Never mind the gangs, stop the migrants, and you cease the problem. Anyway, let's have a listen to Keir's take on all of this while he's in there in sunny Rome.
Here there's been some quite dramatic reductions, so I want to understand how that came about. It looks as though that's down to the upstream work that's being done in some of the countries where people are coming from. I've long believed, by the way, that prevention and stopping people travelling in the first place is one of the best ways to deal with this particular issue.
Yeah, well, mainly it's about a third-party country processing their claims, processing their asylum applications, and that's Albania. So that's where all the Italian or the people who want to come into Italy are going now. They're just shipped straight to Albania, proving to be quite a deterrent. A little bit like, you know, maybe shipping them to somewhere, let me think about what.
Somewhere in Africa?
Rwanda?
Yeah.
Somewhere like Rwanda, maybe? The scheme that you axed on day one without even looking at, Keir?
Kev, there is no difference between what is being proposed here, so taking migrants and processing them in Albania, which is ironic given that Albania up until last year was the #1 country for sending illegal migrants over here on boats. There is no difference between that plan, this proposed plan, which is to process these people in Albania, versus processing those migrants in Rwanda. The only thing that's different is the name of the country. The principle is exactly the same. So we've torn up a scheme that cost the taxpayer £500 million, only now to go and instigate potentially exactly the same scheme in a different country. This is not just mind-blowingly, I mean, it's hilarious. It's out of the Armando Iannucci kind of, book of ridiculous policies, but it's negligent. It's reckless from the point of view of the taxpayer. Let me tell you something about Italy. Keir Starmer is sitting there saying, I'll tell you how Italy have done this. They've kind of gone to the source, so they've gone to the gang. So he's trying to infer that what Meloni's done is what he's going to do in terms of smashing the gangs.
Is he saying that?
That's what I think he's trying to say. However, let me tell you what has actually happened in Italy. Do you know what Meloni did? Yeah. She withdrew support and public services from illegal migrants, which is exactly what we've been calling for and I've been calling for in terms of stop giving them benefits, don't give them housing, don't give them education, don't give them NHS cover. If you do that, you remove the incentive, which therefore reduces demand. It's what Meloni's done. Starmer's not going to do that, Kev.
Yeah, but he's not. What he's talking about when he talks about going to the source, he's talking about these big money deals that she's done with Libya and Albania to patrol their shores.
But so they've given the money back.
So it's not about the gangs. They're stopping the boats before they get out.
That hasn't worked. Libya gave the money and Tunisia gave the money back because it didn't work.
Well, it is working for Italy. They've reduced their...
No, what I'm saying is that Italy have reduced in terms of the numbers by 63%. Simply, my contention, because they've withdrawn public services
but
and
also
support.
it's stopping the boats coming out of Libya and out of Tunisia. And also, the migrants now know that once they arrive in Italy, they get sent directly to Albania
too, yeah.
And that is a big deterrent. If Keir is taking lessons from that, that's good, as Russell quite rightly says. What he could do is reinstigate the Rwanda scheme, because that's all it is, only with a different country. But it's incredible that this fool is saying, oh, it's interesting, I'm very interested in what's happening. What's happening is what you could have done if you didn't knee-jerk just scrap the Rwanda scheme. It's a gimmick, without even looking at it. Now, this guy, Martin Huitt, the guy who locked us all up during the COVID crisis, here he is talking about his new job. He's the commander of the Border Security Command. And this is the alleged big force that's going to smash all the people smuggling guns. As I keep saying, doesn't matter. Smashing the people smuggling gangs is a fool's errand. It will not stop the migrant crisis. You've got to stop the migrants. Anyway, here's Mr. Huitt.
As the new Border Security Commander, my mission is to deliver a step change in all of the work that we are doing to disrupt and dismantle the criminal gangs that are not only trying to breach our borders but are also risking people's lives. By creating the command, what we will be able to do and what I'll be able to lead is bringing all of the activities from all of those different agencies together and working with international partners, working with the likes of Europol, so that we collectively constantly undermine the criminal gangs and the business that they are trading in people's lives. So my message to those groups is that we will be attacking your business in every way that we can across all the routes into the UK.
Well, thank you very much, Joe 90, for that nourishing bowl full of words.
Mate, he looks like a geography teacher,
yeah,
but
I mean,
the difference
words,
is...
that was word soup.
He's a geography teacher on about £200,000 a year for inevitable failure.
Yeah. That's word soup. What is he talking about? Once you start hearing these top cops sort of, we're working with our partners and stakeholders, and it's like crap. It's rubbish. It's rubbish. And as I say, even if that guy, maybe he's bought the nonsense that Starmer and Cooper have been telling him, maybe he's smart enough just to say, I'll take the 200 grand, but this isn't going to work. But it won't work. Stopping the people smuggling gangs will not solve the migrant crisis.
It won't, and I suspect, Kev, here's a little bet, we'll never hear from Martin Huitt ever again.
Yeah.
That's it now.
Well,
he's made it as an announcement, he's launched himself, but because this whole thing will end in farce and failure, he won't rear his head again, because there'll be nothing to say.
Yeah. Everybody remember who Joe 90 was? I've kind of dated myself there.
Oh, I do. Brilliant programme.
Yeah, brilliant programme.
It was.
Let us know, what do you think? Can Joe 90 solve the migrant crisis? 0344 499 1000. Let's do a comparison.
Do you remember
Get us
the
a
music?
picture of Joe 90 and Martin Huitt, and let's see if anybody can tell the difference. I think they might be one and the same person.
Kev, you've got to get the music. Ding, 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 ding. Do you remember?
Well, maybe we can get that as well. What do we do? We're going to do next. We're going to talk about this lovely Labour MP who says that all this hewing and crying from poor pensioners are going to have the winter fuel allowance taken away from them is nonsense. They can all afford their winter fuel, and it's up to them whether or not they decide to freeze to death. You can't imagine people saying, I can afford my winter fuel, but what I'm going to do is turn my heating off so I freeze to death anyway. Really good statement by this lovely Labour MP. We'll tell you all about him after this break.